Oh, this doesn't work.
Oh, that doesn't.
Thank you.
I was wondering if they had something like, or something. I guess I'll just do.
In honor,
I don't think we.
it's a nice salad, very nice salad, it's a cookie treat. There, I'm gonna cast your vote.
Oh, wait. Here. That wasn't it.
I know.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thanks, Pete.
Space science is up above the one.
Long day.
Do you think we'll have a short meeting tonight?
I think so. I don't know, we'll see. Here's three part. $64 question.
Yeah.
You put Joanne's in there, right?
Yeah.
Oh, what, we go to Ant?
Here you go. I thought you were supposed to put it in here. That's why I was trying to get your attention.
Oh. Actually, yeah.
I'm gonna give it to Marge.
Anybody else? I thought I just turned that off.
You got a cup there?
Yeah,
I thought I didn't see them. Okay.
What's that?
I thought you didn't have cups, but
Oh,
now
no.
I see them.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The November 4th meeting of the Albany City Council will please come to order. Will you please join Councilmember Moss in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Councilmember Atkinson,
Present.
Councilmember Barnes,
Present.
Councilmember Moss,
Here.
Vice Mayor Weil,
Yes.
Mayor Thompson.
Here. Next item, please.
Report on consent calendar. Consent calendar items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. By approval of the consent calendar, the staff recommendations will be adopted unless otherwise modified by the City Council. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or a member of the audience requests removal of the items from the consent calendar.
Is there any item a member of the council would like to have removed?
I will have to recuse myself on 4-6 because it's so close to where I live.
All right. Is there any other item?
Yeah, I'd like to pull that one.
You want to pull that one too?
4-6.
Okay. Is there any item a member of the public would like to have removed from the consent calendar?
Disbursement to Chang Jian Steel, to the scooter rack, just because
I'm sorry, what number, for what?
the number, I believe, that is, what do you want, the vendor number payable, or whichever you want?
4.2? Is that what you want?
No, I mean, what number, like, if I was looking at the disbursement, like right now, it has the vendor number payable, that's the check register, vendor number payable, then vendor name payable type, payment date, payment type, discount amount, payment amount, and number. You want the number, the one very end? That would be,
Amber, would you please just turn around and tell me what number? 4 point what?
oh, what number on the agenda? Yeah, that would be 4 point, it's the 4.2 or 4.3.
4.2 and 4.3?
It doesn't say on the actual disbursement thing, does it? Oh, wait, 4.3.
All right, 4.3. All right, would you please come to the podium and speak to 4.3?
Yeah, I was Googling around about the disbursements and was trying to find Chang Jian Steel, where the $2,000 worth of scooter racks are coming from. And I found Chang Jian Technologies, nowhere called Chang Jian Steel. But I did find, I found a website that mentions Chang Jian Technologies that happens to also have steel scooter racks that come only 100 per lot at $20 a piece, which would make it $2,000, which is what the disbursement to Chang Jian Steel is supposed to be. I'm just wondering, I think that the public should, at least the public should have some sort of idea of what the city of Albany needs to purchase 100 $20 scooter racks for before they go paying $2,000 for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to speak to it? Look it up. Okay, all right. So staff will investigate that and we'll get back to you at the next meeting. 4.6.
Yeah, right, this is the construction at Curtis and Marin. So they've been, we were very pleased to get the intersection at Santa Fe and Marin done, and this is an extension of trying to make sure that it's safe for the kids, but it just seems really expensive to me. And I'm just wondering if you could explain why it's cost so much. It's like $500,000, and when I kind of compare it to some of the other things we're getting, like the Pierce Street things for that kind of money, how it kind of stacks up and why it's so expensive, that's all.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. This is Ray Chen, Public Works Director and City Engineer. This is a cost estimate that is based on the work audit previously conducted. The reason it's expensive because this project is more involved. We are trying to tie, a lot of different streets together, and we channel a lot of safe sidewalk and also bicycle pathway. So although the estimate is almost $500,000, it doesn't mean that it's going to cost that much. It always depends on the market, how expensive the construction is. One of the things that we talked to our consultant previously is they believe they wanted to install certain flashing beacons, and those are kind of specialized instruments, and that the cost is more expensive. And the other thing is they want to use this as a tie-in to the Marine Sanctuary project. So other than just the things that we normally look at, like the mobile, the sidewalk, or the crossing striping, there will be a lot more electrical work and a lot more coordination between the signal and other stuff too. So that's why the estimated cost is a little bit higher than usual.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to hear what was involved.
Correct. Thank you.
Ray, in the next coming years, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, there may be major construction work at the Marin School site so I just wondered if you were going to be coordinating with them at all about their construction work and timing it so that all big trucks don't show up at the same time, et cetera.
Yes, sir. Yeah, this is one of the things that we are looking into. We're looking in all kinds of construction because starting this year, Public Works has been trying to coordinate different construction from underground projects to above ground projects and also to traffic projects so that we don't keep cutting into the pavement or sidewalk. With the better coordination, we believe will save the city in the long run, a lot more money than it's supposed to be. And by doing that, what we're going to do, like in this case, we are kind of invest a little bit more money on the design side, which will have a better planning and a better outcome for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this item? All right, the chair will entertain a motion regarding the consent calendar on all items except 4-6.
Second.
It has been moved by Councilmember Barnes, seconded by Vice Mayor Weil, that we approve the consent calendar with the exception of 4.6. Would you please poll the council?
Councilmember Atkinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Moss?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Weil?
Yes.
Mayor Thompson?
Aye, and the motion carries. Chair will entertain a motion regarding item 4-6 of the
I
consent
move
calendar.
4-6.
Second.
It has been moved by Councilmember Atkinson, seconded by Councilmember Barnes, that we approve item 4.6 of the consent calendar. Will you please poll the council?
Councilmember Atkinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Moss? Oh, I'm sorry, recused. Vice Mayor Weil?
Yes.
Mayor Thompson?
Aye, and the motion carries. Next item, please.
Good of the City Public Forum announcement for person desiring to address the City Council on an item that's not on the agenda. Please note that city policy limits each speaker to 3 minutes. The Brown Act limits the council's ability to take in or discuss items that are not on the agenda. Therefore, such items are normally referred to staff for comments or to a future agenda. And I have Patricia Jones.
Thank you, ladies, for lining up. That was very much appreciated.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Patricia Jones, Executive Director of Citizens for East Shore Parks, the organization that has worked for almost 30 years to protect and preserve our shoreline for public parks and open space, as culminating in McLaughlin East Shore State Park, which was established in December 2002. Once again, I'd like to say that CES commends and supports your action to make Albany's waterfront park at the Bulb a safe and healthy parkland for the whole community to use. We thank you for your meetings with East Bay Regional Park District and California State Parks Department to see that the Albany Bulb is managed as part of McLaughlin State Park as intended in the general plan. CES agrees with your decision to stick with the plan to enforce the city's Municipal Code 84. As we know, the number of campers has grown since your vote in May. Waiting, wishing, and hoping is not going to make the situation better. We thank you, too, for your ongoing efforts to provide funding for transitional services for campers. We hope that the campers will use these services because the Albany Bulb is not a healthy place for people to live. It has no running water, sanitation services, electricity, or other services required in residential neighborhoods. Thank you so much for all your efforts.
Thank you. Next.
I'm Carol O'Keefe, an Albany resident. I'm here to announce 2 events at organizations with which I'm associated. The first is a 60s party that the Rotary Club is putting on at the Albany Y. It's this coming Saturday, November 9th. For those of you who remember the 60s, it'll be a great return to times I'm sure were wonderful for you too. There'll be a DJ and music and some dancing and contests. I think somebody dug out one of those twister things. Do you remember where you put your hands in your feet and stand on your head? Whatever. Anyway, one of our members is a chiropractor. He's probably the one who had it. But it'll be a great event, and the tickets are $25 each, and it's 7:30 to 10:30 at the Y at Canes and Solano. You can buy tickets online or see me or Peggy McQuaid back there. The other thing I wanted to mention is the Friends of the Albany Library are having a 2-day book sale just before your next meeting. This would be on the 16th and 17th of November. And this is an opportunity. We put out a lot of holiday items that are in good shape, and we have patrons who tell us they do a lot of their holiday shopping there. Plus, we have mountains of 50-cent books if you're traveling and need 4 or 5 paperbacks to make the flights bearable. So that's at the community center at the Albany Library. It's in 2 rooms, including the really big hall. And the hours are from 10 to 4 on Saturday and Sunday, the 16th and 17th. Hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Davis, and I was the former manager of the Albany Library, and I'm currently the city liaison to the library board. And the good of the city tonight is that I would like to introduce Deb Sika, who is the new Albany Library manager, and she's been there since the end of September. She's doing a fabulous job and continuing the great tradition of the Albany Library. So I wanted to introduce her formally to the City Council, which has always been so incredibly supportive of the library. She just wants to say a few words.
Well, I'm very lucky to have inherited a community like Albany. I have never seen a friends group quite like the one that Albany has, and I've heard wonderful support from Ronnie about all of you that you have given to the library, and the passion that is for reading and literacy in this community is overwhelming. And I've come to you via Houston, but I'm originally from New York. Have about a decade of library experience behind me, all in management. And so I look forward to growing the library and working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and welcome to Albany. Ronnie, thank you for bringing her. That was very nice of you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Amber? Amber?
Good thing we got 3 minutes because I have a tiny litany of things here I want to go over. First off, I wanted to know, and I don't expect anybody to answer me tonight, but I was wondering what the difference is between the end of 844, 843, 84, quite a few of the 84s in the Albany Municipal Code that say that any program sponsored or co-sponsored by the city can be the exception to Albany Municipal Code 8 whatever. And the program that is currently going to be sponsored or co-sponsored by the city that's going to have people on the waterfront in a trailer. Because it seems to me like a program sponsored or co-sponsored by the city is a program sponsored or co-sponsored by the city. I don't see why you guys are going for the expensive option when you guys have had a bunch of other options that have, well, less questionable things, maybe not less questions, but less questionable things than your current plan is going to have. Second off, I was wondering, is there some sort of complaint process for city staff that we can actually, for instance, Nicole Almack, where if I wanted to file a complaint over the lack of accuracy of the statements that are on the Homelessness in Albany page or the lack of accuracy of the statements about Amore, the dog, the puppy that got shot and killed last Monday at the Albany Bulb. Is there some way I could file a complaint about somebody posting inaccurate information for you guys on the city website, or is that just, I don't expect anybody to answer me now, but if somebody could email me, I'm pretty sure at least one of you has my email address, I'd appreciate it. I wanted to know, speaking of the Amore thing, I was going over not only the City of Albany laws on dogs that are a nuisance, but the State of California laws on dogs that are, as Nicole Almaguer said, vicious. Which vicious is actually a classification. That's actually something that there is a judicial hearing process for a dog to be declared vicious. So she really shouldn't have declared a dog vicious unless she the dog has to be declared vicious. And vicious is like the third level. It goes potentially dangerous, then vicious. And all of those are things that they have to be declared by judicial process, not by a cop with a gun who's scared. You know, a puppy got shot and killed, and at the time on the scene, the police told the people that showed up immediately after the gunshots that the dog lunged at him. First it looked like he was going to lunge at him, then it was lunged at him, and then after everybody had already given their statements and everybody had already left the bulb, suddenly the media hears that, oh, well, the cop got bit. Well, the cop got bit, really? Well, he told the people after he shot the puppy that the puppy was going to lunge at him, then told them that it lunged at him. Suddenly lunged turned into bit, and they chopped off Amore's head and sent it to a state lab for testing for rabies. Okay, granted he didn't have a rabies shot, but he didn't even break the skin on the cop. And from what I understood from the people that were there on scene that talked to the officer who shot him and killed him, he didn't actually bite him. That's what everybody heard once Nicole Almaguer released the statement, and once everybody had already gotten back to the home hive. So if somebody could email me, I'm sure somebody has my email address. Somebody could email me a complaint process for Nicole less than accurate public misinformation officer Almaguer, or and if somebody could correct the homelessness in Albany site, because it says that Berkeley Food and Housing Project got Bradley indoors in 3 weeks. It took them 2 months. I've talked to Bradley about this. I've been with him through the whole process, and they didn't get him any job. That makes 2 out of 3 of the statements that are positive things about housing people from the bulb not true. So if you could take them out off the city website or have Nicole email me, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak under good of the city? Seeing no one, next item, please.
Public hearing, appeal of planning application 13-047-1017 Ordway Street, design review and parking reduction for second-story addition. Staff recommendation that the City Council return the application back to Planning and Zoning Commission with direction on the appropriateness of revised roof deck design and stairway.
Good evening. Before you this evening is an appeal of a Planning and Zoning Commission decision for a residential remodel application that was approved for 1017 Ordway. The Commission approved the application on September 11th of this year for a 2-story addition, which includes a master suite with bathroom, second bedroom, a second bathroom, 2 exterior balconies, and a rooftop deck. The existing home is 1,300 square feet on a 3,500 square foot lot. This will add approximately 758 square feet to the existing residence. An appeal of this decision was filed on September 23rd and cites the loss of privacy due to the roof deck and related deck access as the basis for the appeal. A supplemental correspondence was received by the appellant, who cited a building code inconsistency. When the Commission approved the project, they included 2 special conditions to reduce the plate height and also to match railing height and ridge height for the home. In their discussion prior to coming to a final decision, 2 commissioners had expressed concern of lack of support on the roof deck and the potential impact that it might have to neighbors, though ultimately the Commission approved the roof deck since it was proposed to have ladder access and not exterior access. As I noted, the appellant indicated in his submitted material that the project failed to comply with the California Residential Code. The original design shows a ladder and roof hatch to be accessed from the second floor. When we consulted with the building inspector, he concluded similarly that, in fact, the roof deck as it was proposed failed to meet the egress requirements in the code, and noted that the access was going to have to be changed in order to satisfy the code. Before you this evening is the revised design that was provided by the applicant and their architect. It locates stairway access from the second-story balcony to the rooftop. This results in roof deck access, which complies with the building code, though the size of the roof deck has increased from about 70 square feet to 82 square feet. Additionally, the north elevation has been modified to include an exterior stairway, which is now visible from the east view. One thing that was also noticed was that unrelated window details have also been changed on the north elevation. And to give you an idea of what we're talking about, this is the exposed stairway, and this is the north view of the stairway, so this is what you would see. What the Planning Commission looked at did not include those details. Due to these exterior changes, staff is recommending that the application be returned back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for final action. Staff requests that the City Council provide direction to the Commission on the privacy impacts associated with the proposed deck. If the City Council desires to approve the revised design as submitted, we've provided you with findings and conditions of approval for your consideration. If the Council concludes that the Planning and Zoning Commission decision should be reversed and the project application denied, staff would ask that the Council provide direction regarding the basis for denial and that the matter be continued to a date certain so that we can craft findings for you. Both the appellant and the applicant are here this evening, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, first, let's see if anybody has questions for you.
This is, to me, sort of a dumb but obvious procedural question. If you want us just to return this to P&Z and they have to go through this all over again, why do it twice and why don't we just vote on it and be done with it? Is that an option, one? And two is, if we're going to go through the effort tonight to really review this, can we make a final decision so P&Z doesn't have to do this again? In other words, I don't see the point of both bodies looking at this again. So it's one or the other as far as I'm concerned.
Right. No, you do have the option to take action. We made that recommendation recognizing that this is a fairly technical issue, something which usually is fully vetted by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Given that they had reluctance on the original design and you're now being presented with a different design, we thought that, it could go back to them if you felt comfortable with that approach, but certainly if you prefer to take action, final action this evening, you're welcome to do so.
I have a question. So, clear that the Planning and Zoning has not seen the revised in person for people to speak to that.
That's correct.
So what would happen to the appellant? Let's see, that's the one bringing the action. If it's gone back to the Planning and Zoning, would then he or she have another opportunity to bring it back to the council? And would they have to pay for it again?
I believe they would have the option to appeal it again.
Without
I might defer this
paying?
to
That
our
would seem fair.
city
Yes,
attorney.
any decision the Planning and Zoning Commission made after it's remanded to them would be appealable to the City Council, and that would normally require payment of a separate appeal fee.
Besides the one that's tonight?
Yes.
Is there a way to waive that?
The city could choose to waive it, yeah.
If there was something, because that doesn't seem fair to bring it twice when we're recommending to send it back. Okay.
Okay. All right, then we'll hear from the appellant first. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. I think Ann Hirsch presented the situation very accurately, so I won't go through the details, but what I wanted to tell you a little bit about is the actual physical situation. My late wife and I bought our house 23 years ago, and we remodeled our kitchen and added a deck which faced the bay and Mount Tam. And we basically live in that room and we live on that deck. We're there all the time. Now it's my son and I who live there. So also I wanted to tell you that I am an architect. I'm also the president of the East Bay chapter of the American Institute of Architects. And I'm also a design commissioner for the city of Lafayette. So I'm really familiar with these kinds of issues. And I recognize that here in Lafayette, we live in a dense urban area, and I believe that we should be making our housing in the urban area as dense as we possibly can to prevent urban sprawl. So I don't have I'm not objecting to the project in and of itself. However, in these dense urban areas, our privacy is already compromised. And my feeling is that privacy becomes much more precious under these circumstances. So this is really the basis of my appeal. When the drawings were originally presented to the Planning Commission, Zoning Commission, the basis on which it was passed was because there was only ladder access to this roof deck. Two of the commissioners, there were 3 who voted, 2 of them had concerns about privacy. And Commissioner Arkin, who is a marvelous designer and has a lot of sway, obviously, said he has designed these things, and because people have ladder access, they don't go up there very much. Well, so that's changed. There's a stair access. And I can envision that on any summer evening or all summer evenings, there will be people up there. There will be people all over that back of the house. They would look directly into my kitchen and deck area. Now, there's one other aspect of this that I would like to address, and that is the owner has suggested tree plantings to screen this situation. I would suggest that anytime vegetation has to mitigate architecture is a problem. It's not an adequate solution. So any trees that are planted there are going to crowd my yard and crowd my space and light. So I appeal to you not to allow this roof deck to proceed forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. The applicant.
Hello. I'm not an architect. I'm not very elaborate as the appellant. I'm just a resident of the city of Albany. I came to Albany 32 years ago in pursuit of high education. I graduated from UC Berkeley, and I'm working in the area. So please apologize me if I'm not familiar with the rules and regulations. We've been living in this wonderful city since 1981, and we enjoyed, and among all places in the world that we could choose to live, we chose to live in Albany. So I'm going to read through my statement. I don't know if Anne has given the statement too. So again, I apologize if I'm not very elaborate. I'm going to present to you our case. I was hoping that we can see the exhibits portrayed up there. Honorable Mayor of the City of Albany and City Council members. This letter, or this response, is a response and clarification to an appeal set forth by the resident at 1016 Ventura Avenue on the expansion plans of my property at 1017 Ordway Street. This appeal is based on the limited issue of privacy with respect to only one of my neighbors whose property is to the east and to the rear of my property. The Planning and Zoning Commission found that my proposed plan is flawless after we revised our plans to satisfy certain requirements imposed by the Commission. The Commission duly considered appellant's objections as to view obstructions, privacy intrusions, and stairway access, and determined that our project satisfied all of the city criteria once we had modified our plans. Fortunately, appellant privacy complaint can be resolved very easily. A row of tall, dense plants can be installed along the side of the rear fence, which effectively will shield the view from our rooftop to the neighbor's backyard, deck, and kitchen, which is shown in the exhibit. This solution clearly follows Section 20-1 PA13-047-1017 of Albany Municipal Code for Privacy, which states, appropriate solution may include the use of devices such as landscape, a screening fence, or obscure glasses. So our proposed plan is we're going to plant a row of tall, but not too tall, just tall enough so that any concerns that the appellant has to the privacy concerns can be blocked by what is shown in the green. Green is what is not there today, and the rest is there. So if you look at the house toward the appellant side, the east side, this is what you see. That's the side view, and that's the front view. Our proposed privacy screen is shown on our revised plans. This simple screening solution will completely block our line of sight into areas of appellant's property, but which he has concerns, without blocking any further than what will be blocked by our building structure from his side. So our plan is basically, we have done a study, we have done line of sight study, we have come up with a list of plants and the height that basically obscures that a small portion of the view that I will show in the photos that you can see. It's completely minimal compared to the rest of my neighbors from the appellant.
Okay, you need to finish it up.
Please be aware, and this is important, please be aware that several years ago, we resolved a privacy concern that arose because of appellant was looking into our bedroom from his kitchen deck. We did this by planting an apple tree next to the rear fence, which blocks his view into our property and partially blocks our view into his property. Can you show the next? So what basically you see is today from my bedroom, back is where the apple tree is, and his deck is right behind. When he was standing in his deck, on his deck with his son, and his son was partying at night times, they could clearly see into my bedroom. And we are very culturally sensitive to this issue. And we did not come to the city. We did not make any appeal to anybody. We didn't even ask him for anything. We took it on ourselves and we planted an apple tree which blocked that view. Yes.
Okay.
We will be happy to allow appellant to select a variety of plant for the privacy screen that he prefers from 3 choices recommended by our landscape architect as a condition of approval of our project. The fact that our proposed roof deck and proposed second floor windows are located approximately 100 feet away from appellant's backyard, deck and kitchen further supports our position that the privacy screen that we propose indeed will be effective. That is, we will not be able to peer in between leaves and branches, which of course, we would not do it in any way. We will be much more motivated to look westward rather than eastward. Please note that the areas of our neighbor's property, which he claims will be too open to our view after we build our addition, can hardly be seen presently. And I'm showing that in the next one. This is
Okay, all right, because you need to finish up. You're way over time.
Okay, you can show. So if you stand today on the deck, this is the appellant's window. You can see the deck. The deck that he's talking about is right here, and that's his bedroom right there. And what we're proposing is we will have a tall enough line of trees there that will block only that portion to give you privacy. And our concern and our desire is to move westward toward the bay, not toward his backyard. If you go back, you can see the issue of privacy. This is our next door neighbor, and this is our backyard. They're looking to backyard. This is the north side neighbor, and they're looking to backyard.
Okay, you have to finish. You're done.
In a letter from Kent Sparling of 1080 Peralta, he logically and reasonably note that inclusion of a roof deck is an excellent design choice from both an efficient and aesthetic prospect, and that letter is included.
Sir, you have to finish. You're over time. You're 4 minutes over time.
Okay. I think you heard me enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So you don't need this? This has already been distributed?
You're welcome to give those to the council. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this issue? there's not really a rebuttal. Okay, then we'll bring it back to council.
Well, I'm happy to have this go back to planning and zoning.
Well, the long and the short of it, yes, I think staff's recommendation, just go back to planning and zoning. I think the addition of the stairs may have effects on privacy issues that the latter would not. You know, my personal reaction when I saw this as somebody who's been a builder is those kind of decks are usually terrible ideas in terms of the problems for the builders to make it not leak, and over time they do have a tendency to leak. So whenever I was confronted with something like that, I try to persuade the homeowner to not do it just because of the issues around water leakage in a roof. I do understand why you might want to get up there to, I think solar panels are in your design, and to my mind, getting access to those in order to clean those makes a certain amount of sense. But I think I would have come down on the planning and zoning's initial decision if this had been a ladder going up there, mostly as an access thing. I think that's one thing, but when you add that whole stairs, it both changes the design and it might bring on other issues of privacy. I think I'm most comfortable allowing this to go back, but if this again is appealed, I think I like that suggestion that we waive any kind of the expense of appealing this if planning and zoning makes a decision that someone feels that you need to feel needs to be appealed.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. The ladder, if it's not okay because if it was agreed to because of the ladder and now you can't have the ladder, then it seems to me kind of moot to be able to get up there. And also, you know, the design seems good, but it also feels like when someone gets up on the roof that it's like another story. And I don't know if that's, you know, from looking at the pictures, it kind of felt that way, that it adds more height in a way that may be a privacy issue. So I think it's a good idea to send it back and let them take a look at it.
My only suggestion would be to verify that any railing that goes up on that deck, first, if there is a railing, that it's child safe, that there's a mesh or something screening that's dense enough that a small child couldn't accidentally slip through the railing and fall.
Well, I feel like it needs to go back because I think the design has changed significantly from ladder to stairs. The chair will entertain a motion regarding this matter.
So moved that we return this to P&Z.
I second.
It has been moved by Councilmember Barnes, seconded by Councilmember Atkinson, that we return the application to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And did you want to include that there be a waiver if the
Yes, I think
appeals
that's
again?
appropriate. Sure, I appreciate you bringing that back, so that I would amend it to say that if this ends up back here, that they would not have to pay the fee.
Is that, are you in agreement with
That's
that?
fine. I'll take that as a friendly amendment.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we return the application back to Planning and Zoning Commission, and that if the appellant needs to appeal again, that the fee be waived. Will you please poll the council?
Councilmember Atkinson.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Moss.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Weil.
Yes.
Mayor Thompson.
Aye, and the motion carries. Next item.
Pierce Street Park 35% plan. Staff recommendation that council approve the 35% plan for Pierce Street Park with the 4 recommendations from the Park and Recreation Commission. A, add a fence
Excuse me,
around the-
before you go further, I'm going to recuse myself and ask Vice Mayor Weil to take over.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Add a fence around the 2 to 5-year-old play area. B, picnic tables should be situated so that there's clear line of sight to the multi-purpose field. C, play area for the 5 to 12-year-olds should be less elaborate to better accommodate children with disabilities. D, environmental evaluation of air quality should be reviewed sooner than later to better address future uses of the multipurpose field.
Okay, staff report.
I will keep my remarks brief because we have John Hikes from the Planning Center here to walk us through the plans. I will say ahead of time in terms of the Parks and Recreation Commission recommendations, the first was made because the 2 through 5-year-olds tend to wander off and they're a little bit easier, more easily corralled with a little fence around there, something decorative. The picnic table should be situated so that whether we have kids at the park and on the field, and regardless of what the field might be used for in the future, there's an easy line of sight from the picnic tables to the field to keep an eye on kids in both areas. And that the play area for the 5 through 12-year-olds, as you see from the plans, is pretty elaborate, and there was some consideration the commission thought should be taken to allow it to be something that could be used by kids that might have mobility issues, therefore a little bit less elaborate. And then the environmental review that would need to be done sooner than later. What staff is recommending is when we come back to you as a next step for the 65% plans that we present to you a CEQA scope of work that would include air quality and noise from the freeway, and that review including a budget for that scope of work. And then we can take a look at the review then, and you guys can, you and council can let us know if we, if you would like us to proceed with a contract for the CEQA and even some recommendations on that contract at the 65% review stage. So with that, I will turn it over to John and let you take it away.
Cool, thank you. Nice to be back here and presenting to you. I have on the sidebar here just our community process that we've been to several of the commissions and come back to you several times, and I'm happy to do so and show you where we are. We finished the 35% concept development plans, which literally means we're 35% done, which you may be aware. So we've got it laid out. We've had it reviewed by civil engineer, and we're ready to move forward and get more into some of the details. So I'll present that to you briefly and a little bit of the background, and then we'll have a discussion on where we are. So in April of 2013, we were doing this project with the idea of the maintenance center in the south end of the project. Since that time, we've started to develop phasing plans at the same time that would go away from the maintenance center as it was chosen to go onto a different site. The preferred alternative included ideas and concepts for Pier Street widening, which would include removal of utilities, junction poles on that end. There is an issue currently with traffic calming and safety along there, and also an issue with parking. So that was one of the ideas for widening beyond the existing curb to curb. A terraced garden, a large Tai Chi tree, and a really meditative space. And mostly passive recreation was the concept. But then also with the playground alternative, something exciting, something that could fit into the hillside and work with the topography of the site, and also the idea for a park horse, which is the other slide of the gentleman working out, that could be included in the round trail that would go around a multi-purpose field. Also at the time was concepts for a large idea of a fountain, but also native and drought-tolerant plantings along the hillside. So we came back with, at that same time period when we showed this to you in April of 2013, how we could phase out the plan. And we chose to focus on phases 1 through 3, which is the core of the site, and leave 4 and 5, the north and the south end, to future phase. The key point of that is that the phases 1 through 3 must work into the future, and the key element of that is that there would be a multi-use trail that would come through the site. So that's still intact with the 35% plans. That could come on into the future. The biggest issue there is the grading and making sure that the site work allows for that in the future. So with that proposal that we gave to you of the phase plans, you gave us direction to take it back to meet a park design that would cost under $1 million and include access to the park with a gentler slope, an entry pathway, wanted the open space graded completely and have that done, and also the playground to be included in the design. So we came back to you in July with a reordered look at it. We took great lengths to grade the site better so that we would have a less than 5% slope down into the site. That's shown here. So the trail pathway got a little bit longer. We reduced the size of the plaza at the top of the street. We removed the idea for Pierce Street widening and looked at parking alternatives. Here's that list again. We have minimal furnishings, bike racks, picnic tables, and then we kind of broke out the things that we thought we couldn't afford, which were add alternates. Things like the irrigation of the entire area, which is costly, in addition to needing a separate meter, water meter for that. A bathroom also includes a separate meter. You're not allowed to put both of those on, so you've got to pay twice for that. You can't put a bathroom with potable water on the same meter as irrigation per Edmund. And then electrical and pathway lighting, which could then come into a later phase as well. We had estimated 15 pedestrian lights along that multi-use pathway. Here's the alternatives we showed you at the time. We were looking at these ways to handle it. We could bulb in for some parking along on the west side, or we could restrict parking on the east side and only allow parking on the west side of the street, essentially making it for parking. That's an unpopular idea for obvious reasons. These residents enjoy the parking on this side right now, though it is constrained in terms of width. So that design ran about 1.6 million, and that included those add alternates that I said. So when you said come back with 1 million, I was unsuccessful at doing that and came back with 1.6. Your direction was to continue with the design, but to bring it down into the $1 million point with access to the park, an entry pathway, the bathroom facility must be included, and also ADA parking, look at the ADA parking alternative on the west side of Pierce Street. Other ideas were to make sure that the entry access would be on the south end. So we did that and came back to you, and here we are at the 35% concept development. We've included all those elements. The design has changed. The most significant way was the concept for Pierce Street and to bulb into the park space and allow for 3 parking spaces, one of which would be for ADA access spot. That's tied into the design for the raised crosswalk connecting the east side along Albany Hills sidewalk. So what's included is the perimeter fencing, the restroom building, playground structures as it was before, sidewalks and traffic calming elements, park furnishings, and landscaping of the multi-use field with hydro seed. I wanted to show you the major move of the Pierce Street access and show you from an aerial here. We're proposing to put our crosswalk right here. Here's a junction pole existing. Crosswalk here as you come off of the curve from Albany at the north approach. And then look at between the junction poles, and this is why we were able to do it, is to park cars between these junction poles and return back to the existing curb before requiring us to do something with those junction poles. This image here shows the plaza area, but you see where it's graded flatter over here with these eucalyptus trees. We're essentially pushing our plaza over towards those eucalyptus trees so that we don't have as much grading to do, which is what in turn reduced our costs for grading and earthwork. So the raised sinusoidal crosswalk would be a raised hump, and there it is located between these 2 properties. There's enough room here to just put it between these 2 driveways here. And then that calming element then enters into the parking. So we really wanted to have that calming element before you start having these parked cars after the hill there. The ADA parking cuts into the site about 12 feet, and then again a 6-foot sidewalk along adjacent to it. We've included 2 additional spaces where you could do timed parking or drop-off only. The plaza is here, and we've included a small fountain, bike racks, and benches that would overlook into the Golden Gate. Again, here's that image showing you where that is and how you're looking out beyond. This is some sections cut through to the opposite side of the street. A lot of the houses on the east side are set up somewhat, about 8 feet maybe. There's steps mostly to these homes. So we were looking at access and the types of trees that we would look at and the visibility over those types of trees. Here you see the existing junction pole and then cutting in 12 feet for a parking stall and an ADA access down into the park.
Question, the 3 stalls would be 1 ADA, 2 perhaps timed, would be parallel.
Correct, it's parallel parking. And we were doing that, we weren't going into diagonal because there's some other issues with safety and backing out of the diagonal, but there were also issues with going further grading into the site. Also wanted to show you that we're looking at doing additional crosswalk treatment here at Calhoun. That would be in conjunction with the extension of this sidewalk, obviously, but also AC Transit is wanting to move their bus stop about 100 to 120 feet north of the Calhoun intersection. The playground area located down on the flat area, down below the hillside, in conjunction with the prefab bathroom and a drinking fountain and landscaping where possible. And that would really sit right here in that hillside. So that would tuck into the bottom of the hill, which would, if you go out there today, this whole area will essentially sit in that flat area tucked into the hill. So neighbors would be able to look out over the playground and over the bathroom facility. Wanted to show you some of the concepts that we have. This is very preliminary from our consultant. 2 to 5-year-old play structure and a 5 to 12-year-old play structure. And we agree with some of the comments already from Park and Rec to make it a little bit more accessible. And we can work on that as we move forward. An image of what the prefab bathroom might look like. And these can come with electrical connections that will have the doors be timed, which is part of what also you were interested in us looking at. And then the site furnishings for playground seat walls at the back of that grading area, benches, trash cans, bike racks, picnic tables, safety surfacing, which is the softer surfacing under the playground structures, and then also the potential for a small memorial fountain, which we would locate up on Pier Street in that plaza space. All of this came to $1,067,000. That includes all of your soft costs, includes fees for continuing design, and includes fees for the city. And as I mentioned, it includes those the EDMA meter for the bathroom, some of those other costs. When we gave that to city staff for review, they came up with widening the Pier Street ADA parking area a little bit wider so it gets further off of the travel lane. That would be about $1,200 more, which is mostly $2,500 more, which is mostly in paving costs. Consider an additional ADA parking stall, so instead of 2, and then the 1 ADA, have maybe 2 ADA stalls in there, and then 1 just to drop off. Widen the access path. Right now it's shown as 6 feet or 8 feet, and I think they'd like us to widen that so you can get a truck down it, which is a very good point and good idea. That would widen it for about $5,000 in paving costs. Include curb ramp modifications at Calhoun, and we need to look closer at that, but that would be 2 different types. Currently Calhoun was just redone, but it's facing the wrong direction, needs to cross Pierce, so we'd have to look back at that. The Parks and Recreation, I'm not going to repeat what Penelope said, but it's there to add the fence. Well, I guess I will repeat it because it includes the costs. So some of these things have increased the costs. Most of them, however, do not increase costs, and we can certainly address it. So that's where we are with the concept thus far. We've taken all of the input from the commissions and from council and hope that we can move forward into 65% where we'll develop it further.
Questions, comments from the council?
Yeah, I have a question. So the last things that you showed are all costs that are included in the $1,067,000?
No, so we're starting to breach up further.
Above $1,067,000.
$1,067,000, yes.
Okay.
The playground structures are included in this price? They are?
Yes.
And are those things that are custom designed for this playground, or are you going through existing manufacturers, or?
It's existing manufacturer, but they are custom designed. I mean, we can change them to be more ADA applicable, so but you're going to be required to get the on and off surface locations to get onto the structure. Mm-hmm. And then they design it around the parameters of where we've given them space to do it. So they're not off the shelf, but they're designed to the space.
Okay. So they're not totally inventing the wheel when they come up, okay?
Okay, Mike?
There was a point briefly in one of the final slides, something about C3 requirements.
Yes. C3 requirements are water requirements from the state of California. So we are looking, it's a section, C3 is a section within the water requirements. So the more of a site that you pave, once you exceed 10,000 square feet, you're required to do something with that stormwater runoff. A lot of the things that we're doing, we're going to be able to get away with, where the sheet flow of the stormwater is going to come off of those pathways and go into permeable spaces. The one thing we might need to do is on the Pier Street widening for the parking stalls. We might need to drain that into a rain garden before it goes into the stormwater.
Okay, now if we go with 2 ADA spots, I take it an ADA spot is bigger than a regular spot, so is the third non-ADA spot going to get smaller, disappear? Are you going to make the bulb out longer?
The ADA spot isn't longer, it's only wider, and so that was one of the comments from city staff, was to make that whole section wider. So we've got 20 feet for 3 cars in a row.
So it wouldn't be a problem just to convert one of them to ADA?
No.
Okay, can you? Yes. The long curving path there, is the path that would be widened to 8 feet to allow truck access. And there's no problems with making the gravel underneath or anything stronger to accommodate the extra weight?
In order to reduce costs, we turned that to an asphalt path, so it would be like a maintenance roadway, right, maintenance pathway.
Okay, and then can you explain a little bit about your comments about Calhoun and the curb cuts being in the wrong direction? Can you, on the map?
Yes, this was recently done, improvements for ADA access across Calhoun this way, and the AC Transit stop, which is currently here, I believe. So the ramp is literally facing the wrong way. It wasn't done as a dual facing ramp, and so we would have to reconstruct that to have access across the street. Similarly, there's no existing crosswalk, so we would have to do a curb ramp on that side as well.
And is that included in this plan?
No, that's the increased cost by $5,000.
Oh.
It's about $2,500 per ramp.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, okay, questions from the public? Can you come up? People will need to be able to hear you, so you need to come to the podium. Thank you.
Is the ADA path in front of 707 Pier Street or 709 Pier Street?
The ADA crosswalk is located in front of, it's exactly where this car is parked. So there's 2 driveways here. This is 709 and this is 711, I think. And so it's located right where that car is, and it crosses, and then the ADA ramp is right here before this junction pole. And then
You've gone ahead and taken my parking space instead of taking the space from the 2.5 cars parking space in front of 7-Eleven. It's unbelievable that you would choose to take the single car space.
I can tell you a little bit why we did that. We were looking at doing 3 spots, and the curvature that you need for a curb return and coming in for the parking stalls required that we allowed us to fit it between these 2 junction poles without removing them.
Okay. Next speaker.
We could shift the plan 25 feet to the south and accommodate that. And
Next.
it's a parking stall that's on the street.
Okay,
And
next,
anytime you do a crosswalk or curb cuts, you're going to lose a parking spot.
next speaker, please.
Good evening, Council. I'm Peggy McQuaid, Albany resident. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's not an individual's parking place. It's a parking place that's on a public street in front of their house, just as an aside. The reason I did want to come up here, though, I was kind of perplexed about the play structures and the ADA accessibility. Is it the ground that's accessible with the surface, or are there actual structures that are usable by people, by children in wheelchairs or people children that have mobility issues. I wasn't quite sure. And I think it should be the 2 to 5-year-olds besides the 5 to 12-year-olds. Thank you.
Do you want to clarify?
Yes, the concept development for 35%, we basically go to a company and say, this is the size and the space you have. As we continue to design development, we can make them more accommodating for ADA. To your question, though, the safety surfacing, the synthetic safety surfacing is accessible. That's what makes that a good product aside from others in terms of maintenance. Whereas if you used mulch, you would have to have an access point for them. You can go above and beyond for different types of accessible play structures. The type of components I'm talking about allow someone to get off of the wheelchair and then use the structure. The reason I preface that is that there are other things where you can actually have the wheelchair get into the structure and swing, for instance, and that wasn't something we've looked at yet.
Okay. Next speaker, please.
Members of the council, my name is Jim Thompson. I am here tonight representing the entire Thompson family. My sister was born at the Albany Hospital on Marin in 1963. In 2002, she died of cancer, and she was 38 years old. In that year, in 2002, we gave money to the city of Albany for a memorial fountain for her in what we hoped one day would be the Pier Street Park. At that time, the finance director did set up an account with this money that we gave to the city. In 2008, we gave another $500. We donated $500 to the Albany Community Foundation to sort of further this purpose. So I'm here tonight on behalf of my family and to respectfully request the city direct the consultant to work with us, the family, to make the fountain part of Phase 1 of the Pier Street Park. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm Jackie Armstrong, and I'm an Albany resident, and I'm here also to support. I participated in donations for the fountain back then in Diana Thompson's name for a water element, and I was happy to see that you'd had a water element displayed in one of your pictures. I support Jim and the family very much that you consider that for this project, and thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers?
Alan Maris, Albany resident, member of the Board of Education, speaking for myself. I see that we're hoping to get approval of the final construction plans in 2014 in the spring, I guess. Once we have the plans started and a contractor selected, do you have an estimate of how long it will take to finish the park?
I don't think that this project would take a very long time. There's very little in terms of traffic calming on the street. I think that would be the hardest part. But I think it would be about a 120 working day project. How many? 120, so about 3 months.
Okay.
3 to 4 months. Sorry,
Ba-
3 to 4 months.
Okay, and back to the city council. Michael.
Yeah, just a few follow-up questions. There was the issue of sightlines from the picnic tables to the playgrounds. I just wanted to make sure that that was addressed.
Yes. We haven't addressed it in this image here, but the concern was that we were trying to create a little bit of a area around this plaza, and then the picnic tables that we have wouldn't see through these trees. I should note that although we're not paying for irrigation in this project, we are doing supplemental irrigation so that these trees, which are native, could then establish and then grow. So we're showing western redbuds and oaks in this plan, which then they were citing that if a parent is sitting here and looking out into the field, that'll block the view. So we can simply move these away.
All right.
Move what away?
The trees.
So
Trees
those,
can be relocated.
so green is existing trees and red hexagon are trees to be planted?
Existing trees, there's a very large oak here, which is shown in this sort of loose drawing here. New trees are all shown in green and red.
Okay.
Other questions?
Yeah, can we go back to this, the idea of shifting the bulb out 20 feet further south for the, this is like, you know, the artist formerly known as Prince, for the parking space in front of the person's house. So talk about shifting the bulb out and everything 25 feet further south. What's that about?
So this fits just between the two driveways, which is what the concern is. There's a storm drain here and a storm drain here, a junction pole here, a junction pole here, and a junction pole here. We could shift the entire design to have the plaza space end at this junction pole, but we're going to have a harder time fitting as many stalls. Because
Parking stalls.
Parking stalls. Because then you're sort of straddling this pole that's here, and we were looking to avoid doing any utility work with the existing junction poles. So the reason this is the way it is, that we've chosen this spot, is because you're coming off of the curve, you're slowing traffic, and we could fit between this junction pole and this junction pole 3 stalls.
Okay. Other questions?
No.
Marge?
Well, I like the way you have the picnic tables near the 2 to 5-year-olds and that they are closer to the picnic tables than the older kids. So I think that's very good. And I had something that was written here that I'm a little confused about. It says that the grading is done in a manner that does not minimize potential field size. Is that the same as maximizing field size, or is it?
Yes, you gave us instructions that you wanted us to increase the earthwork space, so we've gone beyond so that we'll have a 2% sloped field in this area.
Okay.
And before, we had it smaller, so we changed the design for this curve of the future path here to allow for a bigger open space.
Okay, the language was a little confusing in terms of what
Sorry
you were
about that.
trying to accomplish, so that helps explain that. I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Peter?
I'm good on questions at this point, so.
Okay. Michael, one more question?
Yeah, can you show me the gates or
The gates.
Yeah, we're having fencing now on 3 sides.
We have fencing all the way around. We have an access path here, an access gate, and an access gate here. This is the future multi-use path. You could have this gate open, and folks could take an informal path up from Washington and Cleveland. But most importantly, this would be a double access gate for trucks coming off of that road and
Right.
accessing and maintenance for the playground and the bathroom.
We're not going to put those on electronic timers now, are we?
No, the bathroom or the gates?
No, the gates.
Hadn't considered it.
Okay. And I just wanted to put in a pitch for working with the family on the fountain, and that's it.
We can make that as part of a motion, I think. Did you want to say something?
Well, yeah, a question. If we're having access from down below coming up into the picnic area and where the playground things, does that mean we still need access coming down from up above too, or?
Well, this access point is not ADA accessible because
Okay.
we haven't built it yet. The
But
future phase-
I'm thinking for car access, for widening to that 8-foot path as opposed to the 6-foot path.
We could widen this path to 8 to 10 feet and stop here because really the only maintenance issue, I believe, and I'd have to check with maintenance, is the playground and bathroom.
Right.
That's basically the idea. We were commenting on that, and basically it's accessing from Cancun, from the side of Cancun to the playground area where the garbage.
So my estimate in the previous slide would go down and we could end that width at that point.
And then the long loop would then be 6 feet non-asphalt.
No, it would still be asphalt.
Still?
Asphalt is cheaper than concrete, and we chose to do more of a more informal asphalt pathway.
Marge?
And you have a fountain in the plans right now. And how much is that fountain, do you know?
We'll work with the family and the amount that they've allocated towards it, and then we'll look for additional funding if the contingency goes down or if we can.
Okay, I think that sounds like a good plan.
I want to make sure that the bathroom meter will also serve the fountain, and that's
So I think you've come up with a good plan based on what we came up with, and I'm certainly in favor of spending as much money as we have available to accommodate the suggestions. I actually think that one ADA is what I would choose with 2 timed spaces, or at least try it before you commit the other one to an ADA. I think everybody should have an access possibility to the parking.
I should probably clarify, I think I said it, I don't know that they would be timed. I think that there would be a loading zone. So it wouldn't be like a meter timer.
Yeah.
Okay, can I hear a motion?
Okay.
Well, I guess I could move approval of the 35% plan. I'm not sure what to say about the Park and Rec Commission additional requests. The environmental part of it is the one, if we're going to have a CEQA process later on, I'm not sure why we would be doing something that we're going to have to do later anyway. So I think, money's a little tight right now, is in my perspective of what we're spending money on in the city. So if we can save a little money here and there, I think that's a good thing. And that's why I said something about the no need to make that 8-foot path coming down if we can figure out another way to service all that.
Okay, we need to have a more concise motion.
Yeah. So.
Can anyone else make a motion here?
Yeah, someone else, yeah. I mean,
Okay,
that's more of a comment than a motion.
I will recommend that we approve the 35% plans for Pierce Street Park with the 4 recommendations from the Parks and Recreation Commission, which is add a fence around the 2 to 5-year-old play area, picnic tables situated so there's a clear line of sight, play area for the 5 to 12-year-olds should be less elaborate, and environmental evaluation of air quality should be reviewed sooner than later to better address future uses of the field.
And do you want to add work with the Thompson family?
I'd like to add that we consider the fountain that you have proposed and work with the family to come up with some plan that would meet the desires.
Okay.
In phase 1, oh yes, as part of this
Okay.
35% plan.
Is there a second?
I'd like to make just a quick friendly amendment and widen the path to 8 feet from the south approach, but not necessarily carry that through beyond the play structure.
Understood.
And-
Okay. Are you comfortable with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
sounds great. Thank you for remembering to
Do you,
do that.
would you
Yeah.
like to,
That's good.
you're seconding? Okay, Peter.
I'll second that.
Okay, Councilmember Moss is seconding this. Let's vote.
Councilmember Atkinson.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Moss.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Weil.
Yes.
And Mayor Thompson recused.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very
John.
much. Nice plan.
We appreciate your patience. So we'll be seeing you for another year or so, is that right?
I'll ask Penelope about that. I don't think so. I think I'll be back.
All right. On to new business.
Go ahead.
Next item, please.
Okay. Establishment of working group of members of the Traffic and Safety Commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, and Sustainability Committee to prepare policy alternatives for residential parking requirements. Staff recommendation that the council approve establishment of a working group of members of the Traffic and Safety Commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, and Sustainability Committee to prepare pros and cons by May 2014 of placing a measure of the ballot to amend voters-approved residential parking standards.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. If you give me just a moment to pull up just one slide so that we have it in front of us. The item before you this evening is a recommendation for the council to establish a working group of 3 commission and committees that are most involved in the issue of parking in the city, and have the working group focus on the potential, some recommendations to the council for some potential changes to Measure D. Measure D, which is on the screen, is a measure that was approved by the voters of the city in 1978, and in short requires that new residential units are developed with 2 parking spaces per unit. With the passage of time, it's commonly accepted in the planning world these days that that is a high parking requirement, and contemporary projects in the Bay Area are somewhere, depending on the availability of transit, from say a half a space per unit to maybe a space and a half. There are a lot of different formulas that can be applied to determining parking requirements. Sometimes it's by the square footage, sometimes it's by the number of bedrooms, other times it's locations where if it's close to transit, the parking requirement is lower. What we have found in discussing potential residential applications with potential applicants, particularly multifamily applications, is the 2 spaces per unit add cost and increase the bulk of potential multifamily residential projects. It also, on our small lots, really is challenging to make it function well. And as a result, in some cases, even if it can be, for example, using lifts is often suggested as a way to address that, the parking lifts often aren't used. They're very handy for storage, but they're not necessarily used for actually parking a vehicle. Since the 1978 action, a variety of policy documents have expressed policy statements to encourage the city to look at amending Measure D. Back in our 1992 general plan, there was a statement to take a look at it. Again, in our 2010 climate action plan, there was an explicit statement to revisit this to encourage more sustainable development. And the current draft housing element that's just recently been sent to the state for their review identifies the parking requirement as a constraint to development of housing. The working group is proposed to be a combination of traffic and safety, which obviously deals a lot with the right-of-way and traffic and vehicle volumes in the city. Planning and zoning, which is responsible for implementing the city planning and zoning code and for setting the requirements for development of private projects. And then the Sustainability Committee, which has the mandate from the council to develop policies and programs to implement climate change initiatives to reduce vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gases produced. Staff recommends that a combination of those 3 committees and commissions would be, I know from experience that they all would be interested in the issue. At one point several years ago, we did organize a joint meeting of the 3 entities and to discuss parking policies, and it was a successful first step. This would basically be reorganizing that. We would also recommend that you allow the committees to kind of self-determine the membership. What we have found is that different committees kind of have different volume of work and availability, and some committees are very interested in it and all of them will show up to the meeting. Other committees maybe will just send 1 or 2, and it just seems to work better if they can kind of work this out themselves through the working group process. We would take care to notice any of the working group meetings through the regular Brown Act channel so it would be public and there wouldn't be any violations of the law in that regard. The ultimate policy recommendations, alternatives, they're quite a range that could come back to you. One of them at one end would be to provide some guidance to us as we're preparing the update to the general plan, and then we can just fold in some of the working group suggestions into a draft general plan that then would get a full CEQA review and the council review, of course. And that would be particularly useful if the conclusion is that the amendments that would be desired would require environmental review. If you will recall, if the council puts a measure on the ballot, you're required to do an environmental review when you make that decision. If citizens, through collecting signatures, put a measure on the ballot, environmental review is not required. So we would need to evaluate the checklist that we use for environmental review. Right now, the law is a little bit unclear. The current version of the checklist does not refer to parking explicitly as a potential environmental impact, but some recent case law has said that environmental parking impacts are environmental impacts. So it's a gray area. It will probably evolve either through the courts or through legislative action over the next year or two, and hopefully that will become clear. As I mentioned, if it were to be incorporated into the general plan, there would be environmental review, and then the council, if you so wish, could put it on the ballot. Most likely that would be a 2016 ballot, November 2016 ballot. If you wanted, if environmental review was not required, then it's feasible to put something on the ballot in November 2014. You need to make a decision about that probably before we complete the general plan. We normally need a decision to put something on the ballot by July or August, the decision needs to be made by August, but since you recess in August, we basically need you in a July meeting to make a final decision on something like that. At this point, there would not be any fiscal impacts to setting up the working group, although we would point out that if a separate environmental review, separate from the one that's already underway with the general plan, if a separate environmental impact report or environmental analysis is required, there would potentially be some fiscal impacts to the city for that. Be happy to answer any questions.
How much would that analysis be if we had to have a separate?
It would certainly be focused on the parking issues, but I would guess at the very least $50,000, and it could go in $100,000 or more if we needed to do that.
Okay, next.
So if we did this as a ballot initiative in which hordes of volunteers gathered signatures equal to 10% of the registered voters, is that correct?
I'm going to rely on my colleagues to help me remember the percentage. I think that's right.
Yes, the city clerk just came up with that information today. It is 10%, and she said that's roughly 1,080 voters, given the number of voters that you have right now.
So that would buy us 2 years and save us $100,000.
That's correct.
Okay, let's get to work, people. Some quick questions about existing projects. The mixed-use project, and here's my question. The question is, how much did Measure D affect these two projects? The first is the mixed-use project, well, specifically the senior housing project, which got basically got a density bonus from the state, which means Measure D did not apply.
That's correct, because it was senior housing.
Okay, and now, and you remember, I'm sure, the issue with the parking at the orthodontia office that moved down to, it was like 1,600 Solano, something like that. Was that governed by Measure D, or was that a separate set of rules for commercial?
That's a separate set of rules governed by commercial, and under the ordinance, there's a lot more flexibility by the commission or council to adjust commercial parking standards.
So would we need to include revising commercial in the ballot initiative?
No.
Okay. That's it, thanks.
Quick question. Who would be the staff person that would be involved with this working group?
Myself, Ann Hirsch, and Traffic and Safety, Aleda, Andrino Chavez, and Ray Chan are also involved. So it would be a collaboration like a lot of the things we do. And Barry Miller, our general plan consultant, will be monitoring it carefully as he is this evening.
I mean, ultimately, it seems to me this is a planning and zoning issue. So I would certainly feel if you or Ann were there on the spot, I think it would be best.
You said we should, you would recommend that we allow the working group to decide the membership. I would like to know what you're suggesting, how you're suggesting that work.
That each of the committee and commissions have as an agenda item at an upcoming meeting that they nominate one or more representatives to attend the meetings and participate. What I found at other times when we've done these things, if they nominate, let's say they nominate 2 people, but it's an interesting topic, all 5 of them show up anyhow. and engage. And then it's kind of awkward that only two voices are who's representing who, and then it may be on some other things that say the Sustainability Committee has the Arts and Green Festival. They get really busy at that time of year. Maybe they can't make it. They want to just have one representative for the time being until they finish that. Then they've got a little bit of flexibility.
So you're saying if 5 of them want to come, let that group choose to have 5 come? Okay, I got it. All right, thank you. Any other questions? Would anybody in the audience like to speak to this?
Clay Larson, Albany residents. I was struck by the fact that neither of Councilmember Barnes' examples had any relevance to Measure D. Well, I also noticed that regarding the senior housing project, they got an additional reduction in parking below the density bonus limits based on a concession. Some would argue illegally got that based on a concession. Just a little bit of history. But I want to speak here in favor, in support of Measure D. I think the voters passed the measure in 1978 out of a concern for congestion and parking and traffic. No one would argue that those problems have gone away. They're still here. So I think Measure D plays an appropriate role. And so I would encourage the council to set this up with directions to this study group to carefully evaluate the pros and cons. I do hear some animosity, even hostility towards Measure D at times. Sometimes from staff, but most recently, again, to pick on it, but Councilmember Barnes, I think at a recent meeting, suggested that he hoped that Measure D was stomped into little pieces. I think to some extent that the design here is captured in the sustainability impact, is that it states that an adjustment in parking ratios can reduce vehicle ownership. I think to the extent that people recognize that you're forcing them out of their cars by simply providing no places to park, will build resentment, and you'll end up getting no adjustments to Measure D. I think a carefully crafted ordinance language could make some appropriate adjustments to Measure D, but I wouldn't lobby for the wholesale elimination of the ordinance.
Thank you. It is the practice of this council to ask for pros and cons from committees and commissions.
Carol O'Keefe, Albany resident, thank you for considering this tonight. I agree in many ways with the comments from the last presenter, not about Councilmember Barnes so much, but certainly the intent of Measure D as advertised was to reduce congestion and deal with parking. And I think the hitch is there's apparently no requirement that the off-street parking that is provided is actually used for off-street parking. I looked in the code, there's a little section that says the parking spaces required under this have to be dedicated for parking. And actually, my husband and I were debating what exactly that meant, so that tells you something right there, but we concluded that it meant you couldn't convert it to another room in your house, but you still didn't necessarily have to park in the space that's required. So I am aware of a lot of people who, for whatever reason, choose not to use off-street parking, and maybe not all of it came into being because of Measure D, but some of it did. And so that loophole where there isn't an understanding or there isn't enforcement or whatever there's missing is something that needs to be explored. I'd also say, wonderful though it would be to skip the EIR process and skip the money, it's not clear at all, I don't think, to anybody what the pros and cons of various options for rearranging Measure D are. So I think there certainly does need to be an examination of how hard it has made it to add housing. And in the last few weeks, I've talked with 2 different people in the city who've said, damn, I hope they get rid of that because I have a detached garage. I would love to convert to a studio, but I can't because I don't have the room for 2 more off-street parking spaces. I mean, one of them went so far as to say, I'm looking forward to that for generating revenue in my retirement. And I thought, boy, that would be nice. She gets revenue, we get more housing, but we've got that little problem of, where the cars would go or where the space for the cars would go. So I do encourage you to set up this group and have them bring back the pros and cons of various options, and hope there's a lot of public participation so that people can understand and contribute. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this issue? Seeing no one, we'll bring it back to council.
I have a quick question, two questions. There's no way my house has 2 off-street parking spaces, so I take it existing houses were grandfathered in. So do we have any idea how many of our existing housing stock, how many actually conform to Measure D? Just you can give me a ballpark.
Oh, probably half, because we count driveways.
As one.
Well, if you have a long enough driveway, we can count it as 2. And with Planning and Zoning Commission approval, we can count the front part of the driveway that's essentially in the front yard. So most people have a garage of some sort and a driveway that's at least 18 feet long. And that would count as 2 parking spaces.
Can you pull up my house on Google Maps? 519 Curtis Street. Please, no terrorist threats. Oh.
This is a quick planning consultation, I guess.
If you zoom in far enough, you'll get street view, right? Oh, my son's, okay, that's my house. That's my son's Honda in the driveway. There was there's no other parking, so does that count as 1 parking space? Or does that even count as 1 parking space?
That would count, with Planning and Zoning Commission approval, that would count as a parking space. But you're grandfathered in because presumably whenever your house was built, they
1926.
I'm sure they followed the procedures in place at that time, and we honor the decisions that were made at that time. What usually we would see in a situation like this is a little bit more distance between the 2 homes and either a driveway that goes all the way to the back of the corner of the lot, or at least to a driveway that would be to the left of the porch. And so where the garbage cans would be, it might be normally a garage, and we would count that garage as 1 space, and then where the car is parked as a 2nd space.
Okay. So my other question, thanks for doing that, by the way. Google Earth is wonderful. Your recommendation is that we get the pros and cons back. The council gets the pros and cons back by May. And I don't know the timing of the initiative process, but does that give us time, if we were going to go for the ballot in November of 2014, does that give us time to seriously analyze the pros and cons and then collect 1,080 signatures?
Well, I think it's a 2-step decision-making process. You'll get the pros and cons. With that, we would do an analysis of this, what our recommendation would be for the CEQA review part of it. So you might get a recommendation that we conclude we think does require CEQA review, and then you would need to either decide, ask the citizens to put it on the ballot through the initiative, or to put it onto direct us to prepare a CEQA review and put it on the ballot in 2016.
My question is it even feasible to get it on the ballot in 2014?
If no CEQA review is required, yes. Whether it's feasible to collect 1,000 signatures between May and July, I'm not sure. I defer to those who have more experience out there on the streets doing that.
So we would have 2 months to get signatures.
The referendums are given 30 days to collect signatures. I believe they're required to get the same number. So technically could be done. It would require some organization by members of the community. We're doing an interim check-in with you. We would propose to do an interim check-in probably early in 2014, and that might be a place where if we had some preliminary conclusions or preliminary ideas, and you could give us in the working group some preliminary direction, it might be a little bit easier to gear something up one way or the other.
When would you know that we need a CEQA or not? By the end of May?
It would be knowing what the alternatives, how the alternatives are shaping up, and then doing a little bit more research on the evolution of the case law and the evolution of the legislative efforts to reform CEQA.
I move that,
I wanted to say a couple of comments. I didn't get a chance here. Thanks for bringing this up so quickly. I mean, I said something, I think, at the previous meeting, and I'm glad this has come before us, and I'm glad it's kind of progressing along. The options on Measure D, it seems to me, we have these minimal parking requirements. The other extreme would be maximum parking requirements, and somewhere in between would be no parking requirements. Maximum being what they do in places like San Francisco or in Berkeley to some degree, where you're not allowed to put in parking. I don't think we're in that extreme, but I think Measure D is a little bit too extreme for Albany at this point. And it goes against our, desires to create more housing, our sustainability goals of decreasing greenhouse gas. And I agree with the focus right now. Let's focus on Measure D. All these other issues about commercial parking requirements, managed parking, those are bigger issues. And while I personally would like to see those addressed at some point, I think you have to do things incrementally. So I agree with staff that let's concentrate on D. And then finally, I liked what Carol said about trying to get a lot of input from all over the city, because none of this is going to change unless all factions in the city have their say and can, give their opinion. Parking's a big issue, and as soon as this opens up, everyone's going to find out how big an issue it is.
We did that before.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, one quick question. Low-income housing also falls under the state's density bonus rules.
That's correct. Senior housing and affordable housing can get a density bonus.
okay, I move that the council approve establishment of a working group of members of the Traffic and Safety Commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, and Sustainability Committee to prepare pros and cons by May 2014 of placing a measure of the ballot to amend voter-approved residential parking standards.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Vice Mayor Weil, seconded by...
He wants
him.
it.
Okay, Councilmember Moss, that we establish a working group of the Traffic and Safety Commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the Sustainability Committee to prepare policy alternatives for residential parking policies in Albany. Is there further discussion? Will you please poll the council?
Councilmember Atkinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Moss?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Weil?
Yes.
Mayor Thompson?
Aye, the motion carries. Next item.
Other business, reports on meetings attended, announcement of events, future agenda items.
Does anybody have anything?
I would just like to remind the council, we're meeting all day on Thursday, right?
On Thursday, yes.
That's the 7th, I forgot. I thought it was the 8th.
The council is meeting in closed session for the purpose of interviewing city administrators. Is there any further business? If not, Chair adjourns the meeting.